Welcome.
Roll call.
Let's have a roll call, please.
Mayor Taylor.
And here.
Councilmember Briggs.
Here.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Councilmember Iyer absent. Councilmember Medina absent. We have a quorum.
And the motion to approve the agenda moved by Briggs Watson. Discussion of the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have reported the minutes of September 10, 2024. May I have a motion please to approve the minutes moved by Watson. Briggs. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? The minutes are approved. Unfinished business. Council communications. Here's before we are all ears to the wisdom that you will give to us yourself.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. When we last spoke about the council communications a couple of meetings ago, there was a lot of discussion about the cost, the size of the mailer, what it might look like, and all that is a bit beyond my bailiwick and really in the subject matter expertise area of Ms. Mongrash, who is joining us virtually. And so I solicited her help to try and estimate for you costs and approximate sizes of mailers. And so she's going to walk us through that. So off to you, Lisa.
Good to see you. Sarah, had you provided them with the outline and the design draft?
Yes, we have both handouts.
Okay, thank you. So that was not me trying to be presumptuous on my end. It was simply, I feel like sometimes it's easier to react to something and give you kind of a start as to what we could do and also allow us to have a basis for the cost estimate. So we had worked with a printer to get a cost estimate for an 11 by 17 trifold, which would be color, and that was approximately $49,000 to mail to all 5 wards. And what I was trying to identify was getting feedback from you all as to the frequency that you were hoping for this communication. We very easily could modify the size, although the cost to mail is really the biggest fee that we'll incur. So although we could modify it to a smaller perhaps postcard or what have you, we're still going to have the mailing cost to contend with. So I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't recommend leaning in that direction if you're thinking you're going to save a lot of money on that end. The design that Kimberly Morrison, our in-house graphic designer, had presented you with is just simply for us to get a reaction as to if you all were thinking that there would be static city content. I know when I re-listened to the council meeting where you deliberated on the budget and dedicated this budget, it seemed as if we were trying to bridge a digital divide to those in the community who might not necessarily access our city services online. So that's what the design was presenting, just an idea for phone numbers and contact information for our most frequently visited city services. We absolutely could modify that based upon feedback. But our thought was that that would be static, and then there would be the city council ward by ward that the city council members within that ward would then provide that content. It would be specific to that ward, and it would highlight either council policies or services that you felt were important in that ward. And that would be absolutely determined by those council members. I also realized council member Song probably wasn't the best council member to put on there for highlighting Ward 2, but I think you can get the picture. So I'll stop talking because you probably have questions or if there's anything that you wanted to highlight or give direction to, I would appreciate it.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So 17 by 11, so a little bit bigger than a sheet of paper. I'm imagining that would take the font up to kind of like the size 12 accessibility font that we're looking, like, just want to confirm some of that, because I know we're trying to help people who might be.
Even I can't read this.
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. But it's not a ton of information, you know, it would be probably several paragraphs of information per ward, and I wasn't sure either if each council person wanted their own section to highlight their own, or if it was gonna be a combined, you know, both council members were going to, you know, get together and decide what content they wanted to highlight in that ward.
I think the thinking was it could be either or, right, depending on the council members, kind of leave it up to them. There are some council members that may, you know, collaborate, may want their own space, but may collaborate on the content so that they're not redundant. There may be some council members in a ward that, you know, there are all sorts of scenarios that we can
Right,
use.
okay.
But all this information on the front, on the sides that you're talking about, what would the font be if we included all of this information?
I guess I did not include that. It would be, I mean, it would have to be readable, like, I don't know if it's 12-point font, but we're not gonna have it so tiny that it's not readable. I know it would be a lot more helpful too if we had actually some specific examples of services that you wanted to highlight versus using the filler text.
Yeah, right. So I guess if I could just give my, just off the top of my head, I mean, I think you are, hey, Travis, I think this is a great first draft. I mean, this is really, for my part, what I envisioned. Very resource rich. And I mean, I know what I get asked about, and I could probably take a look here and make sure that those things are on it, but you all know from the data that, you know, what people hit the website for, what they're looking for. You know, I think this has all the components that we're looking for. And I think the price, you know, at this price, we could certainly talk about, do we do just one of these a year? Do we do two? I mean, we kind of had talked about a number of 100,000, which would allow for two in a year. And certainly I think there's probably enough ward-specific information to warrant two. And I think, again, we need to talk to Mr. Mahoney about the numbers, the budget, where the money, you know, is coming from and everything. But just from a design perspective and a information perspective, this really hits what I was looking for personally.
Okay, and do you feel like the entire council needed to be represented on that page too as well? Or were you really hoping to just focus on the two council members within that ward? Because that also would free up, you know, there's ways we could free up some space if all of council wasn't important. And as well as when you want to explore frequency, if in fact we highlighted all of the core services in the very first mailing and folks had that, you could do a smaller mailing that then just highlighted council member information because you would have more space due to removing the city services, if that makes sense, like a larger postcard for a second mailer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or something along that, you know, that would be doable too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The timing, however, is really what we're trying to, the proposal was for January 2025
Mm-hmm.
as a calendar instead of our fiscal year. Also due to trying not to run into any election timing. Yep. So that's kind of tricky too when we're talking about a second mailer.
I wonder with respect to a second mailer, in that the one city mailer is 49,000. You do have the 5 wards plus the mayor's So that, I assume that would be the.
Mhm. Unless you're doing a second one that's a smaller.
Unless
More of a-
we're adding.
Lisa, is the 49,000 cost for the mailer to go to every single household in the city, so all 5 wards?
Correct,
Okay. I just wanted
So one mailer is about 50,000.
correct. And
All right, there's no place for the mayor on here.
Right.
Well, there's,
Other than discount.
yeah,
Although to your point, and I'm joining late, so I apologize. That could be the section where there's currently a bunch of council member information. Because I will say, I don't necessarily see the value in providing the contact information for all council members to different wards. Because we're already doing a significant amount of kind of sorting through who are our constituents, who are the other folks' constituents. And so I think making sure that we're providing folks with who their council members are is way more important than providing an entire page of the information there.
yeah, I agree. I think just having the all council email somewhere
Yeah.
would be helpful.
So I might have missed the point about the mayor having a section or information. Is that what was being said or
Yeah,
addressed?
so the point was there's space there. Then the question is that where the mayor wants to be?
Is your question that essentially each mailer would be 2 council members, so would mayor would be on each mailer? So it would always be 2 council members on one side, mayor on the other side, plus city services.
Yeah,
Or, yeah.
Mhm.
Or, I mean, you could, if you're viewing these as panels,
Sure.
you could easily envision mayor and each council member on one side, and then all of the contact information for the city services on the other side, or something like that. So that they're all together, but,
yeah, either way.
yeah.
The point about the budget, and I think the administrator could help. So this was done as a normal, budget amendment in the second half of a 2-year cycle. So that means we don't really have a decision on, if we're gonna do it in fiscal year 26. But if we were to do this in January, and only do one through fiscal year 25, we could have leftover funds to do a second mailer within, the new fiscal year starting in July. I mean, would it revert to because it's one time, would it revert to the general fund, or could we keep the, I don't know, the 50,000?
Pay it forward.
Yeah. In the new discussion, I guess, but I don't know, it could be envisioned that the 6 months of the fiscal year, right, would mean you could have a new idea in July. Well, Administrator Mahoney, would, if we were to only do one mailer in this fiscal year, because the, appropriation was 100,000, we only spent 50, at the end of the fiscal year, would that kind of revert back to the general fund, the remaining 50, or?
Yeah, that's an automatic thing that happens for any unspent money. And then the intent, as I recall, was for this to be a recurring activity. So you would just start from the next fiscal year with 100,000.
So what are yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's an intention to send it in January. I like the sort of the layout of trying to provide generally useful information. I think we know that people are looking for information on snow removal and sort of reporting of sidewalk stuff, like that's what's on people's minds. You know, thinking about, staff might have some ideas about any, to your point of like what gets, what are people searching on the website around that time of year might be a good thing for us to just be thinking about. I know in later, we might be thinking about tax season or something like that. But otherwise, I think a lot of this information is useful. I don't know that, like, I think we probably each of us need to reflect on what the content is here about what, you know, I'm not sure most folks need the contact information for the fire department, like, you know, 911, good thing. But, you know, we can kind of go through A2 Fix It, I think is something like where people want to issue a complaint. I know that's on here, but it's not like, that might be something we might want to highlight a little bit more. The city's new Ask And. So I know this is bridging the digital divide, but that's a huge new service that could potentially take some of the pressure off of staff. I don't know how that's being communicated unless we just have it be on the website, but it might be something we might want to highlight about how to get questions answered too, potentially. But yeah, I'll reflect on this, and I agree that just highlighting a couple of board people makes a little bit more sense. We might want to identify what commissions we're on or something like that.
I think keeping in mind, like, yeah, this first one will go out in an odd numbered year. It's not an election year, which is good. I think we don't have to worry about the blackout, at least this first time. But then the second piece is maybe on the clerk's office. There's a lot of good information there, but maybe there's the election specific, because if we're imagining we'll have another decision later on about whether we're sending it further, or like in an even year. Safe, so that I think.
Yeah.
In terms of like reviewing the council, I think, you know, that I think working out between the two council members, like, as long as, you know, both would be on, you know, there's only one mailer per ward, right? So that's good. But in terms of like the review process and kind of like the submission dates and all that stuff, that's going to be done through attorney's office or the communications office? Or?
So we will, our office will get to see what each council member drafts, and we won't be editorialized. We won't be editing for content,
right.
Mostly to make sure that we don't run afoul of campaign plan.
Right. Okay.
But if you settle on this format and if we settle on the date, then I can work backward and see this is how much time you'd like.
Is there a determination about whether or not we can share our own pages or newsletters or anything like that?
Coffee hours.
The coffee hours for sure. Personal web pages, we are not recommending that you share because everybody's was different, and some we are more into campaigning than others do. So, and we don't want to be responsible for saying, okay, now you need to edit your website if you're going to reference it here. So yes.
What if like a Facebook? Like, I'm just saying, if we want, well, yeah, okay. I gotta think about that. Okay, but coffee hours for sure.
Yeah, coffee hours.
That's good.
In terms of getting to final on the columns of city resources, how do folks feel like we should do that? Right here is general happiness with respect to the tribal, still TBD with respect to, like, is mayor have a third of this one side and council members have the thirds of the other side, and that's going to be, or what have you. But it seems in any event that as contemplated, there How do folks want to do with that? Let me ask, sorry, as I ask my
Yeah.
my question, how flexible are the service contacts? That is to say, is it necessary that Ward 3 have the same set of contacts as Ward 5 and so forth?
As far as the city services mayor, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
The only reason I'm hesitating is if the complexity in us turning around 5 different newsletters within the month of January for the communication office. So if there's any part of the newsletter that could be standardized, that would be more helpful. Also realizing with December and holidays, and this also having to go through the city attorney's office to quickly review. That's all. As from the communications end, we could modify the services very easily or reduce them if you feel like that the 2 columns that are there now is too much.
I didn't get the look feel that it was too much. I just didn't know that everyone wanted to, that they were all ID'd as the ones that people would expect in a January letter.
Seems like to me that, like, for simplicity and to avoid any sort of weird challenges, if each council member gets a column, and then you got mayor gets a column inside. Our council member contact goes on the outside, or, you know, and then mayor on the inside. There's never a question of do you combine, do you not combine, that's just separate. Therefore, it's never a question of, creates uniformity in terms of same amount of space, just what happens, and then you have 2 columns of content that's consistent across all wards.
Yeah, I think that's going to be easiest for their office. I think we should be able to, I mean, maybe I'm happy to help sort of herd cats on brainstorming among us, if that's helpful for you, Lisa.
Yes.
Perhaps if we have ideas and hopes and dreams with respect to the 2 columns, we'll communicate those to you in relatively short order. You'll cycle up, please, with Wandrash. And then come back at next meeting with a proposed final set of
sounds good.
Upon reflection, at least as an initial matter, reserving the right to deviate, it seems reasonable. And if there's a column for mayor, to have mayor have a column, and then we could run. So if mayor's on a column of each of these, then everybody's constituent is being hit the same numbers of times. It stands to reason then that we can then have a second mayor under the budget line in a non-January thing, but without being hoggy about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I do think I appreciate you offering, because I do think that there are opportunities to maybe condense this, or maybe like having planning down here, but then actually the numbers up here is a little wonky. It feels like the tips under police department could be merged into one and have the phone number or the email like in one line. It feels like there are maybe opportunities to include some of those things that might be more top of mind for constituents. And I think those are the things that we could share back out that are like, these are the things we hear most about. I've never once had somebody reach out to me about removing a dead animal.
We get all.
Maybe that is a top priority, but there are a lot of phone numbers there for the police department.
Ward 5 is way.
So like, are there ways to condense some of it so that we can maybe fit additional information that we hear about? I mean, to your point, different wards have different priority calls, I guess.
Yeah.
And in terms of look feel, if mayor's going to have column 1 on the data side, it seems like it should rhyme in terms of format with the council members.
Absolutely.
Right.
That would require a little bit of change on the thing.
No problem. This was just our first stab at it.
Of course.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that, yeah, my only other thought is like, depending on how it folds up, it is a little awkward to have like one person featured on the like visible side when you get mail. And so, yeah, so I actually almost wondered about flipping it entirely and having the contact information on the side with the mailer. And then you've got the mayor, the council member on the inside.
Yeah.
So that it's consistent with where the things are placed. And then you're seeing like, oh, this is helpful contact information from the city when you get the mail in your mailbox.
Yeah.
So that sounds good. We can switch that around. And that city services and contact information was absolutely the first draft. So if we can, with Councilmember Ayer's input, hopefully we can fine tune that, add, delete. That's not a big deal at all.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you. Bye.
Excellent. City administrator evaluation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am here to accomplish two major goals. I think everybody should have received the draft summary as well as the underlying data. My goal is to gather any edits or feedback for the final version, and also to provide a space for a discussion about a compensation adjustment. I can also review the process or add or answer any questions that anyone might have as well.
The comments that people have with respect to the distributed document.
Is this, so, I'm sorry, I'm trying to recall last time, I feel like we had a conversation in closed session. I know that, that has to come at the request of Mr. Mahoney, and he's not here, which makes that challenging.
Yes, I see.
Yeah,
him on-
I know he's here for that. I don't know how that works functionally for us in this space.
I mean, I could leave, Ms. Higgins could leave, and you could be on the screen with Mr. Mahoney, but he would have to request a close session. We could have a caller. We'd have to put them on hold or.
Mr. Mahoney, are you looking for a closed session at this juncture?
I was leaving that to the discretion of the members. The process afforded me the opportunity to both complete a self-assessment, which I did. The process also afforded me the opportunity to write a sort of an overall response, which I also did and provided to Ms. Sell. I'm assuming you have that.
Yeah.
I also provided in writing what my compensation request is. And as I understand it from the city attorney, it has to go in front of the full council, and then there would be a closed session at that juncture. So I wasn't specifically requesting a closed session today, but if the committee, wants to have that, that's certainly fine. I haven't received any any feedback on either my statements or my compensation request.
The closed session has to be at the request of the person being evaluated. So, Milton, if you would like a closed session, you have to actually request it, and then I can read the language.
Do people? For my part, I have, communicated what I communicated in the course of the evaluation. I'm satisfied with what we received from both Ms. Bell and Mr. Mahoney. I'm comfortable moving forward for my own purposes in regard to, subject to, common consensus to move forward to council with the recommendation to accept the requested compensation change to provide the evaluation as distributed and leave it to the wisdom of council.
I am so.
Yeah, I am fine moving it forward to all of council. I will acknowledge that I'm maybe a little hesitant still on the compensation request. And just wanting to look at, this is not a remark on Mr. Mahoney's personally, but rather just looking organizationally at kind of where salary levels are and wanting to better understand kind of the difference between the highest paid salary earners and some of the others in the organization. And so that's kind of where my calculation goes in looking at the compensation request. And so if we are looking to say that the administration committee is recommending the salary increase today, I may be I may want to think about that a little bit more before moving it.
I don't know that this constitutes a recommendation. I think it just constitutes a passing on to council without amendment.
Of the report.
Of both the report and the proposed contract, which will be coming in at the requested terms. And then the council would have in closed session the opportunity to discuss that. I'm assuming then in closed session, there could also, at council, there would be, based upon this request, based upon your comment, a elaboration with respect to the organization, the place where the comp request falls within the context of the organization and the industry. And then that conversation could take place there. Or we could move into closed session and have it take place here, or at least as an initial matter take place here. I'm up in the air on that.
I think it's, to your point, we're not recommending it, so we're just passing it along. So I'm comfortable having that conversation in closed session with all of council.
Likewise, I think if that's information that you're interested in, I think we should get that information and be prepared to.
I requested that information,
Okay.
so I have it.
Okay.
I'm in agreement. I think it should be discussed at the whole council, or, I think it's okay to have a full discussion in terms of how the process went, the written feedback, the report by Ms. Sell. I'm satisfied, and I'm grateful for the response by Administrator Mahoney. So I'm happy to move it.
I guess I had one final question for Ms. Sell that with respect to Councilmember Briggs' question by email about kind of the same survey went out to everyone and then it was kind of broken into sections. Am I gathering from your response that you already sorted out? So I know that I responded to a few of the staff intended questions. When I tried to unclick them, they wouldn't let me. So were those pulled back out?
All the the data cuts that I gave you were by staff and by council. So if someone answered if a staff member if a council member answered a staff question, it would have shown up in the council section. All of the staff questions were just staff members. So my apologies for the way that the form worked, but I did segregate the data into staff and council. And so when you read the underlying data, it did refer just to those areas. So if you wanted to ignore staff questions that were answered by council members, you could do that.
More importantly, I want to make sure that the staff portion of the report, the numbers didn't include my average that I clicked in.
Oh, yeah. Yep, absolutely. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was separated out for the summary that was done as well. Only staff feedback went into the staff summary and council feedback went into the council summary.
Thank you. That was my only concern with the report itself. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? So I guess then a motion to send the in terms of the format, to send the report and the response to council for their consideration at a closed, their consideration at a meeting, at which there will be, assuming we receive the request, a closed session to discuss that. There will also be at that meeting a contract amendment, which will, based upon the council conversation, be amended on the floor to include the ultimate amount. Does that sound right, Mr. Mahoney?
From what I could hear, it does. If you mention the resolution, I'm told there's a resolution that has to go to the full council, is my understanding from the city attorney.
The motion here is to send the evaluation and your response for consideration by full council. At full council, there will be a resolution to accept the evaluation and your response. And if council chooses to amend the contract according to whatever decision is made at the meeting.
Understood.
Get a motion to that effect, please, move by. Ira Watson, is there any discussion on that motion?
On which we should, good one. Thursday, November 7th.
Thursday, November 7th. From the amendment, we are getting ready to motion. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Approved. Ms. Bell, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good to see everyone. Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
On new business, city administrator updates.
Thank you. We have a group of people that are working on organizing the bicentennial closing event, December 14th at Skyline High School. That event will start at 6 in the evening with the reception and art exhibit until 7:45, and then move into the auditorium for the closing ceremony at 8 p.m. As of last Friday, in terms of our search processes, we have 36 people that have applied for the deputy position and 10 that have applied for public services. That's after only a few weeks. We are closing in on a candidate to replace our facilities manager. He is due to retire in February. We are very confident that we will have a replacement before he leaves so that there can be an overlap. Because that position is not a member of the executive team, there would not be a public announcement about it. We don't typically do that for manager positions. We are moving forward with planning for the economic development director and the economic development coordinator to be physically housed at the election center. We've had some meetings to get that incorporated, and as we're going through the build-out process, that is being factored in. I mentioned last time the demolition schedule. Things are underway at 415 West Washington. No major issues at this point in time. We are moving to reclassify the transportation manager position. And so that process is being worked on between the service area administrator and the HR director presently. Still a little more work to do on that. The bids close on Thursday for the broker for the Klein lot. And at this point, I have no idea how many respondents we'll have, but we'll know after that. And there is ongoing discussion in preparation for the election, getting clarity from the clerk on the clerk's position relative to the 100-foot rule. So we have to make our plans around that, and that's underway. And those are the items for my update today.
Mr. Mahoney, do you have an anticipated or a goal timeline for when you'd like to fill the public services and deputy administrator position, when you would ideally like to have a final decision made?
My goal is to have decisions made before the end of the calendar year. The start date is always subject to, is the person needing to relocate, or are they in the area? So the holiday time is a bad time for, people to be moving and that sort of thing. So we'll just have to work with it. We're a little bit behind on the search launch for the ED position, but that was more of an administrative issue regarding the insurance of the search firm, beyond our office control. But I'd like to have decisions made on virtually all the positions that we have that are considered significant, but I'm not so certain, since we're a little behind on ED, that we'll have that one decided by 12/31.
Thank you.
Mr. Honey, if I heard you correctly, the economic development person is going to be located in the election center. Can you talk a little bit about why that is?
Yes, we are cramped for space in City Hall. And this is not the kind of position that you can ask somebody to be in a cubicle. The caliber of talent that we would seek to hire would require an office. There's also discussions that this person would be involved in that need to be discreet. At present, we are planning sort of a remake of the first floor. We're pushed now just to accommodate some of the people that are currently in the building. The election center is also housing CTN, and they have the space to provide an opportunity for a shared conference room and to accommodate the offices. We really just don't have the space unless I move somebody out of City Hall. That's the rationale for it.
Ask a follow-up question related to that. That rationale all made sense. I'm just curious in terms of, I guess it depends on what people's work life looks like in terms of how much they're in City Hall, but just sort of that day-to-day interface of face-to-face time with folks who are in planning, who are working in, different, I don't know how much people are able to connect with each other one-on-one. It seems like that would make it more difficult to be remote. But I don't know how much people are, practically speaking, able to connect with each other when they're in City Hall these days.
Well, post-COVID, the functionality of city government has made a major shift, not just ours, but city governments across the country. There are far more meetings that are virtual than are in person. I don't necessarily see that trend changing much. We are already moving to add a person within the development process to help be the person that will handhold, for lack of a better way to put it, people that are trying to navigate through the development process. We do see the economic development director in particular needing to engage with a number of external stakeholders. Where their office is really less of an issue to me than how they work. And I don't have any hesitancy about the placement. Now, I will say the offices at the election center will likely not be ready at the time that the person starts. So we do have to make an interim solution happen, and we are in discussions to do that.
And then the only other factor that I would imagine is, well, I do love all of the Fifth Ward. Some parts of the Fifth Ward are slightly more dynamic than others. And in terms of being able to walk out and get to a restaurant or get to a coffee shop, that part is not as much happening in that corner of the city. So just something to be cognizant of. I'm sure you are.
Any other questions? Tony, thank you. Ms. Kaur, tell us about your victories.
Yes, we had a significant victory in the plat litigation. It's not a home run because I think they have to, just because it's so much money, they will file application for appeal as the Supreme Court. Let's hope the application doesn't get granted, but because it's of such importance to the state on the whole, the likelihood that the Supreme Court will grant the application to leave for appeal is high, because there are many other municipalities facing similar challenges. So, but for now, it was a significant victory in the Court of Appeals, and we'll take the wins, and hopefully they'll see the light of day and not appeal. I do think that the court's ruling on the class certification provides a disincentive for them, because plaintiffs' lawyers will benefit more monetarily if there's a class. So we'll see, but for now it is a good ruling, and I think our sister municipalities are watching very keenly. So that's the happy news. My challenges are recruiting for Mr. McDonald's position. It is not going easily. We've had candidates, but none that I think fit the role the way we are envisioning, and his retirement date is fast approaching. It is November 12th. So I have filled 3 positions in the city since I've been here, and I have not had to rely on an external recruiting team, but I think for this one, I am reaching the point where I might have to rely on an external recruiter to help identify candidates that sometimes cold calling a significant number of candidates who might fit the bill helps, and none of us has the time to do that. So that's kind of where we're at with Mr. McDonald's position. Ms. Vargas is trying and working really hard to catch up and learn everything before he leaves. But it will be a significant workload for her and a lot to learn when he leaves. So we're trying to do everything we can, but we probably will end up going to an external recruiting agency for that position. In conversations with other attorneys around town and other people looking for similar positions, apparently that area of law is particularly difficult to recruit for. I've heard from a local law firm that their position has been open for months, from a local developer that their position has been open for over a year. So maybe it's just that special expertise that's in demand right now. But that's the update on his position. And nothing else from me.
Any questions? Excellent. Is there any upcoming business?
I do have some updates. Things that are coming. A reminder that Monday is Indigenous Peoples Day, and so our work session is on Tuesday at 2 p.m. My understanding that the mayor, yes, so we have Mayor Pro Tem meeting. A resolution to revise the 2024 council calendar, adding the November 12th, Tuesday, work session. Tuesday, due to Veterans Day, will be coming to the next council agenda. And then thinking ahead as we get ready to prepare the resolution for our 2025 council calendar, Inauguration Day falls on Monday the 20th, which is also Martin Luther King Day. So we may want to consider, instead of meeting Tuesday, bumping that to Thursday, should it be necessary. That's it.
Have a break, get something. I was gonna suggest. All right. In the absence of anything, although we do have time now for public comment, we do have no one in the room, but we do have one caller on the line. Caller 901, if you wish to speak at public comment, please enter *9 now. Seeing no one, public comment is closed. A motion to adjourn, please, moved by Regina. For discussion, all in favor? Oh, we're adjourned.
Here's the Democrat. You can.
Pardon? Make sure.
I can't
Goodbye.